My name is Krishna Vavilala. I am the chairman for the Foundation for India Studies, a non-profit organization in Houston. We embarked on recording the oral histories of some prominent Houstonians who have been living in Houston since 60s and 70s. And today, our honored guest is Mr. P.C. Sharma. Mr. Sharma, it is a pleasure interviewing you, and we are happy that you agreed to be part of this project. Sharmaji, tell me some background about your previous experiences in India, where you came from, where you were born, where your education was, why you came to America. Is a little bit of background of your life, please.
Thank you, Krishnaji, for inviting me. Before I start, I would like to recite Gayatri Mantra. So if you want to join with me, you're welcomed. Om Bhur Bhavasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yona Prachodaya. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Krishnaji, my full name is Prabhat Sharma. I come from Delhi. I came here in 1974. I was born in Lahore, of course, which is now Pakistan. Back in 1938, 23rd of January, that's my actual birthday. My father was a revolutionary. He was a very close associate of Bhagat Singh. As a matter of,
please tell me who Bhagat Singh was.
Bhagat Singh was a freedom fighter. Very young age, of course. He had revolutionary, and he had done a lot for the freedom fight. He was, of course, sentenced to death by the British government because he had taken a very active part in the fighting for independence. National College in Lahore.
Your father's name?
Dr. Banarsi Das. He was a doctor by profession, but of course he was a freedom fighter. Let me tell you, National College in Lahore, that was a college for the freedom fighters. It was not recognized by the British government, but all those people who were freedom fighters, they used to go to that college. Bhagat Singh and my father had founded the party which is called Naujawan Sabha. There were 12 initial members who met at the National College and formed this Naujawan Sabha party.
Naujawan Sabha,
Naujawan
meaning
Sabha, young people party.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And of course, Bhagat Singh was executed, I think 1936 or something around that time. My father died in 1941, of course. My mother raised both of us, myself and my sister. We came to Delhi after partition in 1947, and as it is, most of the people who came from Pakistan, they have no place to live. So we lived in a refugee camp.
This is in 1947.
47.
Post-independence or pre-independence?
We came on, we moved out of Lahore in June of 1947. Okay. The freedom, of course, the Independence Day was 15th of August. And as a matter of fact, we arrived in Delhi right on 15th of August. Okay. We lived in a refugee camp. The life in a refugee camp, I can't even tell you what it is.
Well, Sharmaji, may I ask you a question? Why did you people leave Pakistan at all? I mean, there are still some Hindus left over in Pakistan.
Yeah, but see, I think 99% of the Hindus left Pakistan because Pakistan became a Islamic republic. By constitution.
Yes.
Okay. So the minorities really didn't have any.
So you felt a little scared, uneasy, not your country. Emotionally, you are not attached.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
you said, my future is in India, not in Pakistan.
Yeah, of course, my mother made that decision, but most of the, 99% of Hindus at that time, and there was a lot of riots, there was a lot of burning, there was a lot of killing during that time when we were in Lahore. I remember.
In general, yes, but in your family, did you get any persecution?
No, fortunately not.
Okay, no.
Okay.
Okay.
And since my father was very well known in Lahore, he had a lot of friends who were in good position. And of course, they advised my mother to move out of Lahore before
it gets too late.
Too late.
Okay.
So she came out of Lahore in about June of 47, 2 months
Before the independence.
Before the independence. And really my roots are a village near Chandigarh. That's the village which we come from. My father graduated high school from that village and then he moved to Lahore.
When were you born?
I was born in 1938, January 23rd, which happens to be Subhash Jayanti also. Okay, so anyway, that's besides the point. So we first we came over to of the village, and from there we came to Delhi.
You mean yourself, your mom, and your sister?
Sister.
And your father?
Of course, like I said, he died in 41.
He passed away in Pakistan, present Pakistan?
Yeah, 41. So that was 6 years before.
Okay.
So anyway, I don't want to tell much about the
past. That was not a very...
No, it was not a very... refugee camp
story.
life was not that good. But since everybody was the same,
sure.
There was no comparison.
Okay.
So everybody was really happy and everything, whatever you can say, happy or whatever. Because normally it's always the comparison which you have. Since everybody was in the same situation.
Yes.
So everybody really, lived whatever they could.
Nobody is better off there.
Nobody is better off, so everybody
sharing the grief,
sharing
misery.
The grief. And it was very friendly people.
Yes.
During those days, 47, India was great. I tell you, people were so helpful to each other. And there was a Ministry of Rehabilitation, which did a very good job. So after 4 years living in a refugee camp, they had built some houses, and we were allotted a house, a 100 square yard house in Patel Nagar in Delhi. And we lived there till my mother lived there. I went to school I was in 6th grade when we moved from Lahore to Delhi in 47. Since my father died, my mother put me to school at a very early age. I was hardly 4 years old when she put me to school. And so when we moved to Delhi, actually, nobody knew what my birth date is, whatever school records they made it. So my official birthday is 7th April 1937, because I was too young to be admitted to 6th grade at my actual age, so they just fabricated some date.
They put
9 months more than
what your real biological age.
Biological date, because I needed to be that age too. So anyway,
in India, though, in those days there were no real records of.
No record was there, but since my mother didn't go to school to admit me, one of my father's friend went there and whatever date he could find, he fabricated and gave it to that. So anyway, I did my high school, higher secondary from Ramjas School, number 5 in Delhi.
What is that school?
Ramjas.
Ramjas.
There are 5 schools in Delhi. Ramjas is a sanstha, which is basically, I got free education, of course, in the school because of my
status, refugee status.
Refugees, poor status also, my father was there. Then I did my BSc. I was trying to get into engineering college, but you have to be an FA. You have to do the 12th grade before you can get to the engineering college. Unfortunately, I could not get after my 12th grade, so I had to go to and do the BSc. And then I appeared for exam for IIT Kharagpur. Fortunately, I qualified.
That's a great school.
That's the number 1 at that point,
That was the very first.
that was the first engineering
Jawaharlal
college.
Nehru, the Prime
Yes.
Minister of India.
And that was the only institute, IIT, in the Kharagpur.
He called. He said these modern institute of technologies are the
Absolutely.
modern temples of India.
Absolutely,
That's what he said.
absolutely. And the education there is wonderful, I tell you that. And it was the cultural activities, the games, the sports, the level of education, and the life was really 4 years of bioengineering college was very good. I was a very good student. As a matter of fact, I was in first 5 in my mechanical engineering. And after I graduated from IIT Kharagpur, I had my first job in Calcutta because being closer to Calcutta. Then I moved to Delhi for 2 years. And then 1963, the only jobs during those times, the 60s, were in public sector undertaking. Because that was the only industry which we had. All others were very small industry. Either was some villas and those things, but most of the jobs were
For mechanical engineering.
mechanical engineering was in one of those public sector undertakings. So Bharat Heavy Electrical was building a plant in Haridwar, 63, and it was still a farmland when the plant was being built. And they selected 70 students to go for a specialized training in Soviet Union. So 63 I got it into BHEL, and 64 actually we married in 11th of October 1964, and I left for Soviet Union in almost end of October.
Okay.
Just immediately after my marriage, and she stayed back.
What
My wife
is your
stayed
wife's name, sir?
back. My wife's name, official name is Nirmal Sharma,
Nirmal Sharma.
but we call her Jaya Sharma. She commonly known in Houston as Jaya Sharma.
She was born in Delhi, or
She was born in Shimla,
Simla? Okay.
but raised up in Delhi. Okay, she did her higher secondary from Delhi, and then of course she went to Maharani College in Jaipur.
What did she do there?
She graduated with BA, Bachelor of Arts, from Maharani College, Jaipur.
Was it an arranged marriage, or you fell
Yeah,
in
it
love?
was. As a matter of fact, the marriage was through the newspaper, had advertised in the paper,
Uh-huh.
and her father, replied,
Okay.
and we got married within 11 days of the starting the negotiation. My mother liked their family, and during those days, it was the family you selected.
Sure.
Okay. The girl was educated, she is educated, she was good.
So it worked out so good.
And
How
it
many
worked
years
out so
now you are
good.
married?
Yeah,
Almost.
and she's been a very good partner, and when I go through all the things which we did, she has been full-time partner for
So
me.
you have children born in India? Or something?
Both of my children were born in India.
Okay. What are
My-
their names?
My son's name is Puneet Sharma,
Uh-huh.
and my daughter, of course, she is passed out. Her name was Pooja Sharma.
Okay.
Um,
What does your son do?
My son is a vice president in MODEC. He's an engineer too, FPSO. He works for MODEC.
Uh-huh.
He's a vice president there
In Houston.
in Houston.
Okay.
My daughter, she was an anesthetist.
Okay.
Unfortunately for both of us, she
It's a
passed
loss.
out about 6 years ago. A big loss, and
So she has children, both
no,
sons
my
and,
daughter was never married, and my son has 2 children.
okay.
My granddaughter Kiran Sharma is now 16. My grandson Garrick Sharma is now 11. My granddaughter, she is in the 10th grade. She will be going to 11th. And she is very good. Both of them go to a private school on Word.
Okay.
Boats, something like that. And as a matter of fact, I pick them up every day.
Sure.
At 4 o'clock, so I have to go there at 4 o'clock to pick them up.
Now, going back to India, your Moscow, we
I
went
was
for
in
training
Leningrad, which is now Petersburg,
Uh-huh.
for a year and a half.
Okay.
It was a specialized training on my It was basically stress analysis of hydroturbines. Haridwar plant was making hydroturbines, steam turbines, and large motors. So my training was basically in the design of hydroturbines. It was a very well trained. My whole growth in industry has been because of that specialized training which I had in Soviet Union. It was a very detailed stress analysis.
How many, 2 years? Is it?
1.5 years.
And you came back to go heavy electricals.
Yeah, I joined, yeah, of course, I was part of electricals. Came back to India in 1966. Since we were the pioneers of the Bharat
First
Electrical,
batch or
the first batch, early batch of being trained in Soviet Union, we were the pioneers of Haridwar plant, and of course holding the department positions.
So you rose up the ladder?
Yeah, I became executive engineer, basically doing what you call that executive engineer. Back in '66, immediately I came. I was heading up the hydroturbine design section. Then I...
Was Krishnamurthy
Krishnamurthy was chairman.
Okay, he interviewed me also.
Oh, he did? Oh. Yeah, Krishnamurthy was the chairman of DHL Haridwar.
Okay.
Our plant was head office was in New Delhi.
Okay.
And the general manager at that time was Mr. Malik. I was very active. Besides my, technical, I have been always very active in one of the other activities. We had a club, officers club, and the secretary position of the BHL club was an elected post. And we had about 500 officers, and there were of course Russians too there. So I became the secretary of the BHL club. It was a very, honored post.
In
And
those days, Mr. Sharma, there is a lot of Russian influence in India
yes,
through the Nehruvian socialistic policies, correct?
Absolutely.
So it was, you name it, even Oil and Natural Gas Commission also had a lot of Russian
Absolutely, in Dehradun.
in Dehradun. Now, you are doing so well in Bharat Electricals, and you were very happy there. And why did you choose to come to America?
Krishna ji, it's, India is very political when it comes to the public sector undertakings. Actually, like I told you, my father was a revolutionary, and I have a little revolutionary blood in me too.
So basically, in those days, when you mentioned Bhagat Singh and Mahatma Gandhi, they differed.
Absolutely.
They were totally at different paths. But
Absolutely.
both were nationalists, patriots. They wanted to fight for independence for India, but methods were different.
Absolutely.
So, unfortunately, Bhagat Singh was hanged, correct?
Absolutely.
And what I read from the history, Mahatma Gandhi did not really support Bhagat
Absolutely.
Singh.
He did.
That really annoyed a lot of people, particularly people
See,
from Punjab.
Punjab was more revolutionary.
Right.
Okay, and even Subhash Chandra Bose.
He was from Bengal.
He was from Bengal,
Yes.
but he was elected the president of Congress Party in Lahore.
Right.
But Gandhi really never wanted him to be there. Okay, so anyway, that's history.
That is history.
That's a history.
History, but it impacted people like you.
Absolutely.
Ordinary people.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
everybody got it.
And in Punjab, most of the people were very revolutionary during that time.
Of course. Yeah.
And so what happened, I became, 72, I became a supreme post. That was when T.R. Malik was the general manager. And then there was, next general manager was Mr. K.L. Puri. K.L. Puri was a very political guy. Okay. What happened is, since I told you the Russians were part of the club, and Russians celebrated a function, and They did not, they just put the Russian flag there, didn't have the Indian flag. They played the national anthem for Russia and they didn't play the Indian national anthem, which made me very, very mad. And Mr. K.L. Puri happened to be the president of the club at that time. And I approached him and I asked him to play the national anthem, and he didn't care for that. So I really became very angry. I collected about 500 signatures asking for, why it was not done. Unfortunately, that matter went into Hindustan Times and was published as a letter. Somebody wrote a letter to Hindustan Times, gave somebody name, gave my address, and it went to a parliament, and then it went to the head office. It became a national issue. It became a very national issue, big issue. And my K.L. Puri says, why did you write to the paper? I said, sir, I didn't write. But that started the difference between the two of us. Sure. And he started making my life very hell.
So that started thinking of leaving the organization.
He made my budget 3 times, okay, production budget from the shop. And I asked him, I said, you have not given me any more manpower. You have not given me any more machinery. How do you expect me to make? And then Krishna was the chairman, and he sent a guy to Haridwar to ask me, how can I raise that much? And Mr. K.L. Puri says, take a leave, get out of Houston, and get out of Haridwar. You can't even speak to him. He forced me to take a leave. He says, you are not going to talk to him. So that was, the political...
Because he felt that your trade union is some sort of militant...
Well, whatever it is, or that, because, he took a revenge. And I felt that
that is the time
you
think of leaving.
Yeah. So as a matter of fact, I had started, I wanted to leave in 72, but I could not because Mr. D.R. Malik promoted me at that time. He said, no, you can't leave. My mother was very much devastated. But in 74, when this thing happened, fortunately I had a friend of mine, Mr. Vora, who was here already. He came in 72. We both wanted to come in 72. He came here.
UK, do you mean to America?
To America.
But what made you think of America?
Well, I had always thought of, if I ever wanted to move out of India, it was only America.
Not Russia.
No, Russia was, of course, no. Russia, nobody goes to Russia.
You were not impressed with Russia?
No, Russia was a very friendly, we were very friendly over there. I had wonderful time over there. Russians are very social people. They love parties, and they love singing, and they love music, they love dancing. And Indians during that time were really respected in India because of the Bollywood movies like 420
Raj Kapoor.
Raj Kapoor and everything.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, Indians were very much liked in Soviet Union.
So you decided to come to America for economic reasons, or?
Well, the reasons, you always want a better life. My father moved from a village to Lahore, okay, and during those times, even moving from your native place to another place was a big move. But you always move, unless you move from where your, the comfort is, you need to move out of your comfort zone if you really want to do something in your life. So whether moving from village to Lahore or moving from India to America for a better future or whatever you can call it, as a matter of fact, my son always tells me, he says, Dad, I thank you very much for making a decision to come over here because he has a good life now here. Whatever it is, India, only very few fortunate people get into these institutes like IIT and Kharagpur and all that stuff. The competition is so high. Now, of course, there are many institutes, but during those times, it was very tough. Okay?
The cream of the
India could go there, and if you don't happen to be one of those, your life is really not that.
Very true. Now, when you decided to come to America, you had any opposition family, mother?
Yeah, being an only son, my mother, it was very tough for her. And what I did actually, she was in Delhi. She used to live with us in Haridwar. But when I made that decision to come, I told her to go to Delhi. I didn't tell her. I resigned from Haridwar, left and came to Delhi and told my mother that I had left. And now she could not, she said, well, since you have made the decision to go, so you have to go.
Your decision.
Of course, it's a big sacrifice.
Sure.
Okay. And it's not my sacrifice, it's a sacrifice for her. Being only son, it was very tough for me to leave her alone. But again, life takes certain turns, unexpected turns,
absolutely,
which you never know, but that's the life it is. Okay.
So you came to the land of opportunity in the year 1974.
74.
Where did you land?
I came in Houston directly,
Okay.
because Mr. Vora happened to be in Houston, and he was working for Lamas. At that time, he used to be CE Lamas, Combustion Engineering Lamas. And fortunately, I came here on 23rd of October, 74. And I asked him if he could arrange my interview. I asked him what are the various departments, and he said, in mechanical engineering, there's a section called pressure vessels. And since I was very good in stress analysis, I told him to, get me a code book, pressure vessel code book for a few days, ASME code book. And he brought it, and I read it for a weekend, 2 or 3 days. So very, got the idea of what it is. And 31st of October, 7 days after I landed in Houston, I went for an interview to Lamas. Fortunately, I got my job straight away, same day.
So you have been with the company for how long? How many years?
I retired from maybe the Lamas.
After 35?
30 years.
30 years.
I became the manager of mechanical engineering.
See.
As a matter of fact, when I joined Lamas, of course, since I didn't have much experience in that line, so he put me on a drawing board. I became a draftsman.
Of course. Many engineers started as designers in those days.
Okay. And I had never done a drawing before, but that's a job I got. But fortunately for me, I just overheard my supervisor talking about a subject design, which he was saying, I don't know what to do about that. I overheard it. And I told him, Graham, what's the problem? He says, well, this is they want pre-stress anchor boards for our pressure vessel, and I don't know how to do it. I said, you want me to try it? So I wrote a paper, about 7 pages paper. And when I gave it to him, he got surprised. He said, you can do that?
Why are you in the design?
So, he went to the manager. He says, this guy doesn't belong to the
Correct.
board. He belongs back at the office. So I got 2 promotions for the first 4 years of the year. I really came up
really built up
very
top.
fast.
Yeah.
And like I said, some of my colleagues used to wonder how. I said, listen, guys, have you ever gone to your boss and told him what you can do and what you can't do? You have to sell yourself.
Absolutely.
Okay. You're a technical person. Unless you let people know what you can do, if you just keep on doing what they have given you, you will never rise.
Very true.
Okay. You need to go and ask for more. Tell them that you can do more. And then, of course, there were more problems which came, and, I did those designs and everything.
So what are the projects like? Are they power plants or chemical plants?
No,
oil
these are Lamas used to be in ethylene business, petrochemical. As a matter of fact, during those days, almost 60% of the world ethylene production was by Lamas.
Okay.
Of course, they
have a patented technology.
Yeah, they had their own technology. And we were specialists in ethylene plants. Of course, then came refineries also, polymers also. Refineries also, there were coke drums and other FCC units and all those stuff. We build plants all over the world. And as a matter of fact, I have traveled almost to entire world.
Is that right? So typically what countries did you
I've
visit?
been to China, I've been to Korea, I've been to Russia, I've been to France, I've been to Saudi Arabia, I've been to Dubai and so forth.
But
so
there
forth.
is no other place than Houston, any better place than Houston, correct?
Yeah, there's no better.
So you settled down in Houston.
Yeah, settled down. No, what I'm saying is levels for negotiations.
Yeah.
Business
trips.
Business trips, okay, for maybe a week or a month or so forth. But fortunately, I have traveled all over. The one incident I tell you is I went to Saudi Arabia. During that time, I still had an Indian passport. And the way I was treated by Saudis during that time, well, I don't want to go into detail, but it was a really bad experience. So I came back to Houston and I said, since I'm going to be traveling all over, I'm not going to travel anymore with the Indian passport. So I gave up my Indian passport and became the American citizen.
Which year?
I don't remember actually, but maybe 1990 or so. Okay.
But did you have any qualms, regrets, so at the time of renouncing the Indian citizenship?
Well, yes, you are right.
Some sad feeling.
You are right.
Sad
Okay? You
feeling.
never wanted to do that.
But still.
But now, since I have decided to live in this country,
Okay.
okay, and since I was traveling so much,
Okay.
it was better for me from security point of view also. See, unfortunately, what happens is I'm born in Lahore, and my American passport says born in Lahore. And I tell you that I have so much problem with the immigration.
Getting a visa.
Immigration. Because
Oh.
when I come here, where are you coming from? I go to India very often.
Sure.
When I come here, every time they say, what were you doing in Pakistan? I said, no.
You are talking about the Indian immigration. Whenever you visit India,
No.
or
No.
in here,
When I come back,
come back.
to Houston,
I see, the
and
American
they see my passport, and they says, born in Pakistan. Okay, been to Saudi Arabia, you've been to Dubai, you've been to these places. What were you doing in Pakistan? I said, no, I was not in Pakistan. Well, you were born there. I said, no, that was Flight 38. And I have to really explain them every time.
Yeah.
Because this is the aftermath of the 9/11. All that stuff. But
Right.
anyway,
So
I decided.
coming, you are settled in Houston very well, and your family settled. Now you have extra. You are also involved in the community in a significant way. Tell me something about your Houston life here.
Well, Krishna ji, 74, when I came here, there were two societies in Houston. One was the Hindu-Worship Society, and other was the India Culture Center. As a matter of fact, I remember we used to live in Afton Village apartment on Silver. There was a joint meeting of ICC and Hindu-Worship Society. They wanted to buy one common place and build a temple there and build a center also. But, there were some individuals who were very strong ego. They didn't want to become one, as a matter of fact, so ICC went its own way and Hindu-Worship Society went its own way. Fortunately for me, I have always been associated with Hindu-Worship Society from the very beginning. We bought this land, which is there on 22-23 Ward Crest in Spring Branch area. We used to meet at that time, about 20 families. No, in 74 there were about 500 families total in Houston. And all of them, they used to go to, on Saturday, they used to go to University of Houston to see a movie. Okay. Bollywood movie. That was very common. So we basically knew almost everybody. If you remember, I know when you came, but 74, there was only one this grocery store, J store.
In Westheimer?
Westheimer somewhere.
Inside the loop.
And it was about 5 foot wide, long pan, and she used to sell all those dals and everything, which were of
That's
course,
where you meet other
you
Indians.
meet all the Indians and so forth. Of course, now that Houston has grown up so much, but during those times, we knew almost everybody.
Do you remember who was the mayor at that time? roughly? Just
No.
who are the mayors in your time?
No, I
starting.
don't. No, I
Okay.
don't. I was not
now
that-
it is Kathy Whitmire,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
the present mayor.
yeah. So I really don't know much about that time. But almost the Hindu community was, of course, was there, and there was Hindu Worship Society was the only religious organization at the time, and happens to be I'm a little more religious person from
And
very.
you can see that.
I can see that. I'm from a Brahmin
family.
family in any case, so I've been very active with that from the very beginning.
Now you are the president of the Hindu
I'm
Worship Society.
I'm the president of the Hindu Society. Well, I've been in that post from very beginning itself. As a matter of fact, the temple was built in 1980, and I was the really person who founded that temple.
Raised the money.
Raised the money and
built the
temple and all.
You're still managing that temple.
I'm still managing. As a matter of fact, I don't want to divulge much, but my friend Ravi Gaur is my neighbor. He's always been big help to me. As a matter of fact, both of us, we gave the personal guarantee to the bank to borrow money to build the temple. And of course, the money did come once it was built. And now, of course, we have added more to that one, and still.
It's growing.
It's
I can
growing.
see
It's
that.
still growing. Unfortunately, the space which we have is limited.
Yeah.
We are trying to buy adjoining land, but the temple as such now is a beautiful temple. And we meet there every Sunday, 11:30 to 1 o'clock. We have Aarti. I'm still very active in that one. And also, back about 25 years ago, if you remember, we started this organization, Hindus of Greater Houston.
During Raj Sayal.
Raj Sayal, it was his idea. Raj Sayal was the idea. He came to me and he says, Sharma, let's do something. So it was his idea, it was my execution. So we had met at the temple, Hindu Worship Society. There were members from all the different Hindu organizations at the time. Meenakshi Temple, of course, one of the time. Hindu Worship Society and the Meenakshi Temple, they were the basic, but I was I had called that meeting at the Hindu Worship Society, all about 12, 15 people, and Venugopalan was from...
Venugopal Menon, doctor.
Yeah, he was there, and we had this, Siddharth is a dream of celebrating Janmashtami on a community level, at large level.
Sure, and George Brown Convention.
George Brown Convention.
They do a great job.
Yeah, did a great job.
Thousands of people.
And people, there was Kerala Hindu Society, and then the Meenakshi Temple, and Hindu Worship Society, and all basically.
Yeah,
temples.
as the community grew, more organizations
came in.
Now, besides your religious activity, I would like to know any activities you are involved in the mainstream political arena, like Democratic Party or Republican.
Well, I'm really not very active in any. The only thing I do is, like I said, I'm a Democrat. Okay. I do send some money to some Congress people who favor India, to tell you very frankly. Okay.
Now, I also want to touch upon another sensitive subject, which is the racial discrimination. Did you encounter any such?
Krishna ji, at job, no.
No, even in the society.
Well, let me tell you, at job, no. Okay. At job, really, I had a wonderful time since I was still learning during the initial stages. Whomsoever I went for help, they were very keen to give me the help. Because I was learning and I used to ask questions to all my seniors, and they were very happy to teach me. I really didn't feel any discrimination at my job at least. But let me tell you one incident. I did my master's over here after I came. In '79, I did my master's of MSME from University of Houston. I had 4.0 grade point average, the highest. But one subject which I had was organization management. And this was non-technical subject. And in that, there were about, I don't know, some odd number of students. And the exercise the teacher gave is select partner for you. And since I was the only Indian in the big class, nobody selected me. I had my name, P.C. Sharma. I was left alone. Okay. So
it is a subtle difference.
So you could feel that.
You could feel it.
You could feel
right.
it.
Okay.
And then, of course, he said, okay, now we're going to make a team of 3. Okay. So we make 3 members. I became part of one team. And he gave an exercise. You have to kick out one member from your group. The member was kicked out. So you can see.
You're a blatant.
You can see that. But besides that, really I didn't feel. The one incident I tell you that. Ravi Goel and...
Went down quickly. Yeah.
Anyway, no, I really didn't feel much of it.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Small incidents.
Yeah, small incidents, really not much of I didn't feel much. Okay. I've been at...
you have any message for your next generation, our Indians here?
Well, the only concern which I have, Krishna, is all these temples and all these big institutions which we have built. Unfortunately, they are still being supported by the first immigrants. Okay. Most of the people who go to these temples and elderly people like you and me who are supporting it, who are giving money. I'm not sure if our next generation will be able to financially support these big temples and all those things. That's really my concern.
Any message to them?
Message? Well, the only thing I can tell is take part in these societies, take part in these temples, because that is going to be you always want to go back to your roots and everything,
culture
and everything.
Religion.
Even now, like I said, America is a very melting pot, and sooner or later everybody merges into it. Okay. Everybody loses their own identity and culture.
It looks like that. Everybody will become an American.
It's inevitable.
Yes.
Okay? So if you want to continue your cultural, I don't think it's going to be possible, to be very frankly. Okay? Sooner or later, maybe one generation, maybe 2 generations.
Yeah.
We are all going to become
But
same.
as far as our generation is concerned, we are doing our best.
Our best to continue that. Okay?
To delay the process.
Delay the process, but it's inevitable, in my opinion. My son, he married an American girl, so
melting pot.
It's a melting pot.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma. It has been a pleasure talking with you. This is a great contribution to our Indo-American Oral History project, so that the future historians and researchers, anthropologists, sociologists, anyone who is doing a research on Indian immigrants, this interview will be very helpful, and we thank you.
Before I close, I just want to let you know, my wife, she has always been an active part in all what I have done. She is a very good singer. Her voice is very melodious. She has been singing bhajans in the temple at many places and been entertaining people all over. She reads Ramayana very well. She has really been a very big partner in all what I've done.
Wonderful. I'm sure she is the better half for you.
Absolutely.
And we would not mind interviewing her in our next interview if she is prepared to do it.
Okay.
Thank you so
much.
much.
Thank you very much, Krishna ji, and thanks very much for you. I appreciate your help.
Thank you.